Commander Bill, I shall forever be grateful to the advice and mentorship that you have provided me in the past. You will be missed by your friends and your wonderful family. Please join me in a moment of silence for this dedicated and accomplished Legionnaire, past National Commander William M. Detweiler. Thank you. Please recover. Our next speaker has had a truly distinguished Coast Guard career. He assumed the duties as the 31st Vice Commandant of the United States Coast Guard on May 24th, 2018. As the Vice Service Chief and Chief Operating Officer, he executes the Commandant's strategic intent, manages internal organizational governance, and serves as the component acquisition executive. A native of Newport, Arkansas, he graduated from the Coast Guard Academy in 1981. His flag officer assignments include Deputy Commandant for Operations, Pacific Area Commander, the 14th Coast Guard District Commander, service with United States Forces Iraq Training and Advisory Mission for the Ministry of Interior, and a military advisor to the Secretary of Homeland Security. He earned a master's degree in industrial administration from Purdue University and a master's in national resource strategy from the Industrial College of the Armed Forces. Ladies and gentlemen, the Vice Commandant of the United States Coast Guard, Admiral Charles Ray.
Well, good morning, everybody. Good morning, Legionnaires. It is great to be here in Indianapolis. And it is great for me to have this opportunity to honor an organization that has done so much for the men and women of the armed services. And I want to start off by saying happy 100th anniversary for the American Legion. I offer a hearty welcome to all of our distinguished guests, active duty reserve, civilian members of the armed services, and certainly past and present. I thank you for gathering to honor the American Legion, to celebrate your 100 years, and also for recognizing the service of our armed forces, the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard. I want to thank those of the American Legion for all that you do for the service members as demonstrated today. Speaking of that, I just would like once more to ask you to give another round of applause for these young folks that represented our services. And finally, I want to thank the great people of Indianapolis. I've been here several times, but it never ceases to amaze me just when you walk around and meet folks from around here, the patriotism and how they support our armed services is certainly the hospitality they've shown us and you. I spoke with our Master Chief Petty Officer of the Coast Guard a couple of days ago who was here with you earlier in your convention, and he told me what a thrill it was to be a marshal in the parade and going downtown here in Indianapolis. So thank the city for that. Since your creation 100 years ago, the American Legion has become known worldwide as a premier veteran service organization. As we've seen on the videos today, whether it's mentoring youth or whether it's scholarship programs or working with our wounded warriors, you exemplify what the volunteer spirit of the greatest part of the American Republic has and what it does, not just for service members, but for our nation as a whole. I think my first job was an American Legion job. I was the bat boy on our American Legion team in a little town in northeast Arkansas. I was 10 years old, and I was a big baseball guy, and I was just thrilled to have that uniform with that American Legion patch on my shoulder. So thank you for getting me started on the right foot a few years ago. I tell you, if you remember nothing else in my short comments today, I want you to remember this one thing. I am here to thank the American Legion specifically on behalf of the 42,000 active duty women and men in the United States Coast Guard for what you did for us personally in the last year. It was mentioned during that wonderful program we had in the kickoff about what the American Legion does now, and I'll tell you, you made a difference in the lives of over 3,100 Coast Guard families. We had that government shutdown, the first time in the history of our nation that an armed service has not been paid for being on duty. And that was a tough time, I'll tell you, to be a leader in the Coast Guard. Our folks continued to stay on watch. They served around the planet, going in harm's way, whether going against drug dealers down Central America or whether over in the Middle East or here around in search and rescue around our country, but they could not have been better served than they were by our American Legion. You, because of your generosity, I'm talking about quick action. I mean, this was not, we'll debate this for weeks. This was, government had the partial shutdown, our people to get paid, and the American Legion were the first ones to step up. You donated $1 million of grants to 3,100 Coast Guard families, and I can't thank you enough. And I'll tell you, these are important things. It lets them pay their child care, to help them not get behind in their rent. It helped them put food in the refrigerator. And I've traveled all around this country since then. And this is forefront on our young people's minds. And it's not just the national effort. I'll tell you, at the post level, the American Legion distinguished themselves. And I'll just name a few examples. In Vallejo, California, American Legion Post 550 presented $2,000 in gift cards and this is a small station we've got there in Vallejo. Post 184 in Savannah, Georgia collected food and funds and diapers and other things to support their coasties. At a breakfast fundraiser, Post 36 in Maine, in Booth Bay Harbor, Maine, Legion raised $2,000. In Wyandotte, Michigan, they gave $100 Visa cards, Post 217 did. And in Tannersville, Pennsylvania, they gave nearly $1,000 on toiletries and baby diapers. And these are the things that make these young people, and I'll tell you, as you all know, a lot of our people that recruit, that come into the service, they're the children of service people. And I will tell you, what you did was you kept them with the knowledge that their nation stood behind them, even when we had these kind of challenges over in Washington, D.C., but that the people of America stood behind them. And I'll tell you, it'll make a difference moving forward as we go to look for those people to be the next generation. So I want to thank you on behalf of every single active duty Coast Guard man and woman and their spouses and their children for your tremendous generosity. Thank you. The other thing is our Master Chief Petty Officer of the Coast Guard was so enthused by the support of the American Legion. He said, well, we've got to establish a American Legion post, Coast Guard American Legion post in Washington, D.C. So I've got the draft charter right here. I'll take it back to him. A special delivery. So the American Legion, as we all know, represents those who have served and is comprised of those who have served. And all of those who serve today, these wonderful young people that we recognize today, our incredible Medal of Honor recipient that you'll hear from after me, that I'm really not worthy to stand on the same stage with this man. All of us stand on the shoulders of you who have served before. And so it is through your contributions and the example that you set and you continue to set that people are inspired to military service today. And I'll just talk a little bit about the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard, as you know, is one of the 5 armed services. We happen to be in the Department of Homeland Security, and we have unique missions that are in peacetime and in wartime. As the only armed service, we kind of bridge the gap in in Homeland Security between Homeland Defense and Homeland Security. And our unique authorities allow us to do things for the nation that a lot of people just don't ever run across. I mean, certainly it's hurricane season. For those of you in Indiana, it may not be as apparent, but for our representatives from Florida and Puerto Rico and South Carolina and all those places along the Gulf Coast, you know this is on the forefront, and my hearts and prayers goes out to our folks from Puerto Rico as Tropical Storm Darian is forming up down there. But in the last 2 years, your Coast Guard saved over 15,000 lives in hurricane seasons across our country. In the last 3 years, your Coast Guard, working with international partners and with law enforcement officers, the state and local, we removed 1.4 million pounds of drugs from the oceans that were destined for the United States. We ensure in the waterways of America over $5 trillion of economic activity. We are present on every continent. We've got folks serving over with Central Command in the Northern Arabian Gulf as it heats up with Iran right now. We've got folks on patrol boats over there. We send our cutters to the South China Sea. Your Coast Guard is serving across the globe. And we serve largely, and I will tell you, these people are supported largely by the efforts of great veteran organizations like the American Legion. And so, in kind of wrapping this up, and the other thing I'd like you to remember is, in the course of my duties as Vice Commandant and the other jobs I've had, I had the chance to travel around literally around the entire world and around the country. And when I go around the world, other people, they want to emulate the armed services of the United States. They want their militaries to be like our military. And I'll tell you the one thing, when we provide training and we provide, armament and other things but the one thing that I don't think that's possible to replicate, and that is these young people represented that we saw up here this evening, and the people that you are and that you were as you served, because that is the heart of our services. That's the heart of our armed services. The center of gravity, the strength of our nation is the young people who raise their right hand and swear to protect and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and they take this oath for people they've never met, and they willingly go in harm's way, and they've been doing it for the entire life of our nation. And so that is the strength of our services, and that's the strength of our nation. And it hasn't gotten any easier. I mean, I know that we all like to think it was tougher when we got started, and it was tougher in a lot of things. The other day, I was on a C-130 leaving Kodiak, Alaska. This is only about 4 days ago, and we were flying out to Dutch Harbor, Alaska. In the back of the C-130 were 2 young E-3s fresh out of boot camp. I mean, they were green as the grass, and they were going out to join their ship, the Douglas Munro, which was doing an Alaska patrol in the Bering Sea. And these young folks, I mean, they were ready. They'd been trained, and they were ready for the next part of their service. But you could almost feel the butterflies yourself. As I sat down, you've been in the back of C-130s just loud, and you're hollering in each other's ear. And I talked to them, and they were excited, but you could tell that kind of butterflies in your stomach that we've all had as you step off and go into that first duty station or to that first mission or many other firsts that you experience in the services. So I will tell you that that's still there, and the young people are still stepping forward to do that. And one of the reasons I think they continue to do it is because of things like this, because of this convention, and because of the award ceremonies that we have, where we raise these young people and we identify them and we shine a light on them and tell them how important their service is. These are the ties that bind the citizens of our nation to the people that serve today, and I can't think of anyone that does that better than the American Legion. What you do in so many ways What you did today, what you do with these youth, what you do in your post around the country is you reaffirm the value of those young people raising that right hand. You reaffirm the value of service to the nation. You reaffirm that it is more important to serve our nation than it is to be self-centered and to move forward only thinking of yourself. And because of that, we're the greatest armed forces on the planet, and will remain that way. I want to close by thanking the American Legion once again for all that you do to honor and support our 5 armed services. On behalf of the soldiers, sailors, Marine, Airmen, and Coast Guardsmen on active duty today, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for what you do day in and day out. You are the reason we serve. You represent the finest thing about America, and it's an honor to be here with you today. May God bless the American Legion, and may God bless America. Thank you.
Admiral, it's my great honor to present to you a medallion, my challenge coin, and a membership lapel pin. But most of all, I just want to let you know how appreciative I am that you have chosen the Department of Virginia for the home of your post.
Yes, sir. Thank you.